Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from finding your faith, dating after divorce, and mental health. Here's your host, whose inner child is still his outer child, Tommy Maloney.
Hey, good morning to you. Hey, welcome to the podcast known as Blending the Family. I'm your host. Hi, how are you? You doing good? What's going on with your bad self? It's me, Tommy, the host of this podcast, Blending the Family. Tommy Maloney. Yes, please, no autographs. You can find me on LinkedIn as the Tommy Maloney. Whew. A little stir crazy, just a little, but that's okay. I enjoy it. I'm an introvert. If this is your first time coming over to the podcast, I apologize. In a bit of a silly mood, and I guess that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I don't know. I'm tired of the negativity in the world. I just want to be goofy, crazy. Drop some F-bombs here and there. Ready? F-bomb. Oh my God. Oh my God, what happened there? I don't know. Hey, how you doing? I don't know. Holy fuck. There you go. There's an F-bomb. For those of oh my, I am not re-recording this. For those of you who do not know what an F-bomb is, that was an F-bomb. Motherfucker. Okay? There you go. This somewhat reminds me when I was a stay-at-home dad, and I would be with the boy, the dude, a.k.a. Connor, all day. It was a blast. I miss those opportunities. For those of you, all right, here, hold on, before story time happens. I want to say, if you're home with your kids and they're driving you nutsy crazy, be blessed. Okay, just be blessed. I learned the hard way. If you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me talk about how I took my first marriage, the time with my son, for granted. Little did I know that after 6 years of marriage, I find myself divorced, become an every other weekend dad. So please, as much as your kids are driving you bonkers, enjoy it. Because they're going to grow up faster than you imagine. They're going to be out of the house. And next thing you know, you're going to be like, I miss the kids. And let me open another bottle of wine. On this episode of the podcast, before I get back to story time, on this episode of the podcast, Marco Munoz is on this podcast. He has an app, and I'm super excited because I really wish I had this app when I was going through my divorce. It's called DComply. DComply. Website, all that will be in the show notes. But DComply. Okay, so I totally forgot where I was going. Hold on, let me stop this. Hold on, I'm gonna stop. Okay, now I remember where I was going with this story. When I was a stay-at-home dad, and I'd be with Connor all day, some of the things we would do is we would go to the local mall, get him in his little stroller, and we would just walk around the mall, or we'd go to the park, run errands. But back in the day when I was playing hockey, and I get to the rink and I'm getting changed, and the guys started coming into the locker room, I would drop a lot of F-bombs because you're in a house with a young toddler, baby, child, and you need a little bit of adult conversation. So, fuck, shit, asshole, those words just come out like a thespian actor being on the stage of Hamlet. So I feel your pain if you're home with the kids, but just remember, don't take the time with the kids for granted. Doing okay? I'm concerned. I think I'm doing okay. No symptoms. I'm home alone most of the day. My wife Ann is extra. I don't know what the word is now. Shit. See, there's me just dropping naughty words, but I can't think of the word. Essential. Yeah, essential. I don't know. So she gets the opportunity to go into the office, and she's already told me that she's glad. I could see it. I could really see that I would drive her crazy cuckoo because I'm just that way. And again, if you've listened to this podcast, you'll know I'm a nut job. I have no really good skills at all. So there you go. All right. Like I said, Marco Munoz. Gosh, I cannot speak today. With the app DComply is on this episode. A mutual friend of ours, a mutual friend of the podcast, Gabriel Hartley, got us connected, and so here we are with Marco. And on this episode, he's going to talk about not only the app, but how he actually saved himself $3,500 because he utilized the app himself. We get into this discussion about he's married, but he's not married. And you can hear my brain exploding when he's talking about it. I'm just like, wow, what a concept. Not to say that I should have thought of it, but interesting. What is the app DComply? It helps co-parenting with keeping the financial records together. It's highly encrypted. I don't know. I'm super excited because, again, I really wish I had an app back when I was first divorced. It's now. I think it's now a little too late. The boy is 17, so one more year to go. So yeah, DComply. Check it out on both on Google Play and the App Store if you have an Apple. And I was going to say something about Apple and I totally forgot. I don't know. All I know is that right now I think my computer is starting to die and it makes me nervous. I love my Mac. Yes, I'm one of those people. I love my Mac. Yes, I have an iPhone. Actually, I have two, but that's another story. So there you go. Again, I'm concerned about you. I hope you're doing good. I gotta tell you. Can I just tell you one more boring story? I hope you'll listen to this. So, I've been trying to do my best to make a conscious effort of calling my grandmother more often than I should. And a couple weeks ago, when I was talking to her, she was asking my opinion of she lives in a retirement community. It looks like an apartment complex. So she has a 1-bedroom apartment. It's a really nice place. And they get their food delivered because they can't go to the dining area. So she was asking my opinion about the menu, what she should order. So when I talked to her the other day, I said, hey, how did we do? And she said, we didn't do good. We did not do good. So I'm going to stay away from helping my grandmother order food. Also, here in the Denver metro area, near where she lives, yesterday it was above 70. It was a gorgeous day, beautiful day. And of course, I stayed inside all day. Today is not even going to hit 60. It's going to be in the high 50s. Hey, weather on the 10s. Anyway. But my grandmother was saying she was outside and she was wearing a winter coat. And I was like, what? I hope as I get older, I hope I get wiser, which has yet to happen. But I hope I don't have that issue where it's a gorgeous, beautiful day out where I should be wearing shorts, but I end up wearing a winter coat, mucklucks, and an Elmer Fudd hat. If that's the case, please just tell the people with the straight jackets, just come and get me. Come and get me. Okay. All right. There you go. Marco Munoz on this episode with the app DComply. Check out his information on the show notes. Please leave a rating, review, share this podcast. Let others know about this podcast, please. And I guess, as you all know, you should be washing your hands. And so I was not able to get the name brand hand sanitizer. I got an off-brand hand sanitizer. Not going to mention the off-brand name. It's okay. It's okay. And there goes the work phone. Nope, that's a personal phone. Sorry, forgot to turn that off. Anyway, so I've got hand sanitizer right here. Did you hear that? Close that. Put a little in my hands. Get it all goopy up. So there you go. All right. So I am staying somewhat compliant, washing my hands, using hand sanitizer. I hope you're doing the same thing. The social distancing thing. Are you wearing a mask? I would love to know. Are you wearing a mask? My grandmother asked me, "Hey, are you wearing a mask?" I'm like, "No, I did wear a hockey mask the other day on a conference call." Nobody really thought it was too funny except me. My son did a little bit, just a little bit. And the reason I just brought that up is somebody just walked by the house walking it looked like a mountain dog, Burmese mountain dog, looked like it. Anyway, they weren't wearing a mask. Just saying, just saying. So there you go. All right, I think I'm done. Whew, I hope you're doing good. I really do. And I'm very appreciative of all of you that are still hanging in there, listening to this crazy, wacky podcast as I keep putting them out. I don't know why. I eventually, I think I'm going to retire this podcast. I think. I don't know. Probably not. Anyway. But then I can't use my line. I can't say it. But I have to say it. So remember, in the immortal words of Terry Crews, and that is, go wash your hands. Just kidding. Your success is my success. Thanks for listening. Please leave a rating and review. Wash your hands. Use hand sanitizer. And be kind to one another. Even if they're your former spouse, just be kind to one another. Virtually hug people. And just love. Send a lot of love and gratitude out there. There you go. I'm done. All right. Bye.
Warning. You're about to listen to a conversation, not an interview.
I went to see my parents yesterday for the first time in a couple weeks, and I saw them in the park. We did the 6 feet of distance, and that's a really, really strange experience to not be able to go over and give your mom a hug and kiss when you see her.
Right. Hi, Mom. You're too close. Too close.
Yeah, exactly.
Emotionally and physically, you're too close. Come on, back off.
Right.
Well, I had an interesting experience. Somebody on LinkedIn who I've never met, I've no connection with, just sent me into it was really weird, but in a good way. They just asked, "How are you doing? How's your family doing? Are you getting through this?" And I'm like, "Wow, okay, thank you. Yes. How are you doing?" And it's funny because I had written and posted on LinkedIn like 20 random things to do. And one of those things was to just randomly either call a stranger or text a stranger and just asking them how they're doing. So it actually happened.
They heard your note. They saw it.
I guess.
Yeah. See, I'm a guy from New York, New Jersey area, and I inherently don't trust people. So I think I would have been freaked out by the stranger message. I remember the first time I was in California when I was in my early 20s, and people were extremely friendly, and they'd look me up and down and say hello, and the first thing I could think of is, what the fuck are you looking at? Because I was very unaccustomed to strangers saying hello. So I figured out it's just a different culture out there and a different pace. And not that New Yorkers aren't friendly. We're very friendly and very nice when you get to know each other. But I think that we keep a pretty hard exterior.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. In my worldly travels, New York people do get a bad rap, but it's like you said, Marco. New York people are a little bit more on their guard, I would say, than the rest of us. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. In the Midwest, our first inclination is to right when we meet you, we want to hug you, give you that handshake, or nowadays the bro handshake. But realistically, it's the 6 foot air high five.
Right. Yeah. That's that's definitely different out here.
Yeah, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah. No, that's just different. I won't say it's good, better, or worse. It's just different.
Yeah, yeah. So, after reading the information you sent me over, Marco, the question I want to say is how did we get here? How did you come up with this app? What was the aha moment and the pain point of creating this co-parenting app?
Yeah. No. Thanks for asking that. The inspiration came from being in court for several years. So I was divorced in 2005. I was divorced while I was going into business school. And then about 6 years later, I started, seeing the fruits of my labor at business school and started earning more money. And it was at that time that my ex-wife put in a petition for modification of an increase in child support. And she made a claim that I wasn't helping her with the increased expenses that she had for our son. And the claims were, suggesting that my son had some issues that I didn't really agree that he had. And having his health insurance and knowing the history, I definitely did not feel like she was really representing her situation in a way that was accurate. And she took a month's, or actually an annual amount of expenses, and she went to the court with that spreadsheet and told the court that that was a month's worth of expenses and represented it that way. And she actually won, and she was awarded with child support at that time of $4,000 a month based on the extraordinary needs that she suggested that my son had. Um, to give you a little background of where my son is today, and just to help you guys understand that he really didn't have these conditions. My son is now a senior in high school, and he's about to go to school on scholarship for music. He's a brilliant kid, and he actually lives with me now, and none of those expenses that she described really existed. Um, so that was really what inspired me to build some sort of app that would help the court or help divorce attorneys, help mediators, help parents basically do a better job of really tracking what really happens. So the idea of the app is to make it a place where you could send a bill, you could pay a bill, and you could track it all in one place. And the reason why this is so important is most parents really struggle with this. They might send an email to their co-parent and say, "Hey, I need you to pay this bill," and that email might just be disregarded. And there's no place where that email is being stored or that bill is being stored where you can go back and say, "This was done." And then the other parent, maybe they're honestly just telling you that they paid. Maybe they just forgot and they don't know whether they paid or not. But when you have a lot of bills that are going back and forth between parents, and between parents who, you know, don't necessarily always are in love with each other, um, there's real opportunity for there to be fights and for there to be arguments. So I wanted to create a place that was this kind of like this third party solution where everything got input into the app, all the payments, all the bills, all the disputes over the bills. So that was kind of like this neutral place where, someone else could just draw a report from it and kind of come to a neutral opinion about what's really happened versus, one of the parties creating a story or the other party having some other narrative, because there is one narrative that's true, and that's, what's really actually happened in the app. And that's really what the app is about.
Marco, I want to take a step back, because as somebody who has experienced going through family court themselves, going through that horrendous, um, for me it was a day of hell. Um, my former wanted to take our son out of state, move out of state, and luckily the judge, who was a male, and I know it's really hard, especially when it comes to family court, to say a judge should be biased. But from speaking to you and understanding in your situation, your judge in that situation with your former was a female. And
Yeah.
it, it and again, I don't want to paint a negative light in family court, but there have been so many documents stating that there's a good chance that if you're, and I'm going to probably get myself in trouble, but there's a good chance if your judge in family court is a female, she's going to side on the side of the mother, which is unfair, because
Mm.
again, a judge should be neutral in that situation to be able to hear both sides. And so that's why, hearing your story of how, even though you were going through business school, and even though you end up becoming more successful after business school and you were already divorced, that your former was able to come back and try and get more money, which she ended up doing. It's just unfathomable that a court system would allow this to happen. And again, it's family court is such a crock, such a, it depends on, what lawyers are paying what judges for, when they come up for reelection. And again, that's not only my view, but other past guests on this podcast have talked about why family court is so insanely unfair to the dads.
Yeah. Um, I think that unconscious bias in our society is a real problem. And, as much as, I've really had to work through this because I went through a lot. This cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, what I went through. Um, but rather than being angry, I wanted to really focus on trying to fix the problem. And what the problem is it's multifold. One is the courts are inundated with cases. They've got a lot of work to do. So to some extent, I really do feel bad for the judges in that they have to, or in the state of New York, they have court magistrates. They have to process just a ton of information. So they're kind of stuck oftentimes making decisions, oftentimes I think just based on some testimony, and not always able to look at all the facts and all the information and all of the memorandums that might come from the attorneys, right? So I think that's one um, particular challenge, and I think the other challenge is that people don't bring their best selves to family court. In criminal court, you always have like the best representation of a person. In family court, it's a deeply emotional um, and painful process, and to have things solved in such an arbitrary way is really terrible. I think the solution to family court is not letting stuff get to court, and staying as far away from using court as a solution that you possibly can. And I advise that to all parents because even if you're the parent that wins in family court, you still lose because you could put a lot of pain and suffering on the other parent, which is only going to hurt your kids. Um, so, forget about the courts, is what I try to tell people, and really focus on trying to solve your problems outside of courts because unfortunately, the solutions are arbitrary. So, when I built Decomply, what I wanted to do was build something that did two things. One was keep people away from court because they'd have a way to have this kind of non-biased perspective on their finances, um, and also a very clear, right? Because I think the way a lot of I think there's a lot of unscrupulous attorneys out there, and the one thing I will say about my process, more than anything else, is that I thought my wife's attorneys were unscrupulous. They knew that she was presenting a false argument, and they didn't care. They continued to advance it, and I think that's incredibly unethical. And I even tried to find ways to sue the attorneys because I felt that they needed to. There was some justice to be done there, more so than anywhere else. Um, so, if there's a way to collect this information about the financial relationship that exists between parents, that's easy, that's succinct, that's simple for a judge to read and really figure out the situation without someone really um, making up stories or someone creating their own version of the truth, I think you can give courts a better way to make decisions, an easier way to make decisions than just to go on people's testimony. Because, like we said, people don't bring their best selves to family court. So we need to solve for that and solve for the kind of information that they have. If it's all coming out of one platform, it becomes very hard for someone to paint a different picture. So, I feel bad for the folks in the family court to some extent. I think they're doing the best that they can. I think they're dealing with a lot of. I think they're dealing with a problem that inherently they're not really built to solve. These are family issues, and solving it in a court isn't the best way to go about it.
Well, one of the things that um, somebody that you and I both know, Gabrielle Hartley, she's been a past guest on this podcast. And one of the things I said to her was very similar to what you were just talking about as far as your former spouse's lawyers, is that I said to her, I go, this is insane that a lawyer is going to take a case of, again, to use my example of, my former spouse wanting to take our son out of state. I really wish my former spouse's lawyer would have said to her, or ask her, is he involved with your son's life? Question number one. And the answer is yes. This is where a lawyer should take a step back and go, I don't care how much I'm going to make. This makes zero sense. But again, as Gabrielle mentioned, that's not their job. Their job is to, serve their client, and regardless of, how much physical, emotional, financial pain, unfortunately, that's their job. And it's just I like your point of trying to keep it out of the court system because it only makes better sense to keep it out of the courts and to maybe, you know even bring in a mediator in to try and alleviate the possibility of needing to go to court.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the idea of family court, and it's almost laughable. Like it's just why you would have some arbitrary judge use the law with an arbitrary set of rules that have been set from I don't know how many years ago to try to decide how two parents in today's day and age should be operating with a bunch of really kind of laws that are outdated. Um, it doesn't make any sense. So, if you're a parent out there and you're listening to this and you could find a way, you're going through a divorce or you've been divorced and you've got issues, if you can find other ways to resolve your issues, run from the family court. Stay away from that. Do everything you can, because there is no such thing as winning. That's the thing that I learned. The most important point ever that I got out of the process that I was in is, even when you win, you're still losing. There is no winners in that scenario. And to Gabrielle's point, it's like, remember the story about John Adams? John Adams, he represented the folks in the Boston. He represented the British soldiers in the Boston Tea Party, the ones who fired the first shots. Everybody in the United States is able to have an attorney, and is supposed to get their best defense. So even people that you find really despicable, still need to be able to share their story, and that's kind of the way we've created our society. It's unfortunate that some people decide to abuse that, and there are actually lawyers out there who will, if you come to them and you bring them a bogus claim, and they see through it, they will tell you to go away. And I've seen that too. So there are some really good people out there who practice family law, who are trying to do the right things. And my advice to those who are just hearing what they want to hear, and kind of being sold that set of goods by a divorce attorney, also run from that.
Well, I want to go back to your app, Marco, Decomply, and as I'm sitting here thinking about that app, which is brilliant, but theoretically, you have to have both parents um, taking the use of this app. Have have you noticed or heard any stories where, one former spouse says, I want to use your app, but my other or my ex won't comply and be a part of this app?
Yeah, it happens all the time. And it's a shame. Sometimes just because it's the ex's idea, they won't do it. So the way we actually designed the app was in such a way where one parent could use it without the other parent. So let's say the first parent who signs up for the app, and the other parent decides not to. The first parent could still use the app as a billing engine. They could still go ahead, go to the doctor's office, take a picture of the receipt, and send the bill over to the other parent automatically. And that parent, since they're not on the app, they'll still get the email with the bill associated with it, and they could choose to take action or not take action. But at least this gives that first parent the opportunity to document all the transactions that have happened in a much simpler way than trying to keep track of all of the emails, right? They've still got everything lined up. And then, I initially had some challenges getting my ex-wife to use the app, because now I have custody of my son. So what I did is I compiled some expenses in the app, then I downloaded the report, and I emailed the report to her, and I said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm putting you on notice that I am tracking all of this in this app. So you could choose to use it or not use it. It's up to you, but I'm using it, and I'm going to track everything." And that became the commitment device that made her get on the app, because she realized at that point that I was pretty serious. So she's been using the app and actually paying for everything. So it's great.
Well, I'm laughing because you were talking about the emails, and I my former spouse, that's the only way she will communicate with me is through email. So everything is through email, and it gets, for me, I'm not a very good organized person. So it's like I have all these emails, and I'm just like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to organize these in different categories, different folder? I'm just like, ah. So when you're talking more and more about the simplicity of your app, it reminds me of the app I have to use for my dreaded day job. And I'm going, this is brilliant. Like you were saying, You're at the doctor's office, you get the bill, you take a picture, boom. Now you have it. Now you have the proof in the pudding of we were here on this day, here's the bill. It makes so much sense. We're oh my gosh, Marco, where were you in, let's see, 2008? So when I got divorced, why couldn't you have been Nostradamus back then?
Well, I hadn't gone through all the pain yet. I was a
Oh,
couple years behind. Um, but yeah, I mean, to your point, I talk to parents who are pretty well intended all the time, and oftentimes the fights over money aren't because one parent wants to kind of hose the other parent. It's because they're disorganized. It's really that simple. And misunderstandings, unfortunately, amongst divorced parents, which I call low trust relationships, they will escalate very, very fast. And that's really the problem. So, I was talking to another parent just the other day, and what she said to me, she's like, I got this divorce agreement. I was told by my attorney I've got to keep all of my receipts. I've got to make sure that I track all of those, and I also send them over to him. And I've got to remember to do all that. I've got to remember to keep the receipt. I've got to remember to send the email. I've got to create my spreadsheet to make sure that I'm tracking things. Then I have to track when it gets paid. It's like I don't have any time for that. So what happens to a lot of parents is that they just give up. They get their divorce agreement. They might follow through on the expense portion of it for maybe a month, 2 months, maybe a year. Some folks, and then they fall off. They eventually will fall off, and it stops happening. And what happens is they stop getting reimbursed for a lot of expenses, um, because they just don't feel like going through it. So, for me, over the past year since I've been using the app with my ex-wife, I've collected somewhere around $3,500 that I don't think I would have ever seen had I not used the app. So I think for me, and for a lot of parents, the app is, um, you know, finally helping them get the reimbursement that they deserve based on what they agreed upon.
can you go into a little bit more detail about that, Marco, about how you said that you were able to recover 3,500 with if you didn't have the app?
Yeah, so if I didn't have the app, what would have happened is I would have sent her emails. She probably would have ignored the emails. And then we would have gone back and forth on what the expenses were or weren't on email for a long time. I probably would have given up because I've just got frustrated and just let it go. But now I make sure with every bill I get, I just take a picture, upload it to the app, and there's nothing to discuss because it just is. And the app is tracking when that gets paid. So if it doesn't get paid, she can't tell me that she paid it because it's in the app. The payment comes through the app. So there's no argument over it. It's a very different dynamic on how we handle expenses. What's great about it is we never need to talk about it. It's all done in the app.
That is the best part, really.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, Marco. I know the app you can get on the App Store, on the Apple App Store, and on Google Play. Can you walk us through the process?
Yeah, it's pretty simple and it's actually changing. We're currently putting out like a second version of the app. So what you would do is you'd download the app, and I'm going to describe version 2 because I think that's what most people will be seeing is you download the app. The app will ask you to input your name, the name of your child, and then will ask you if you want to invite your co-parent right away or not. And the reason we're doing this now is to let parents actually get into the app and start looking at it and get a feel for it before they invite their co-parent, just to make sure they're really comfortable what they're sending their co-parent. Because we know that this is a they're oftentimes challenging relationships, and we want to be able to give somebody the opportunity to really know what they're getting into or asking their co-parent to get into. So at that point, once they're in the app, they can then go off and start sending a quick bill. And once you send a bill to the parent, it will prompt you to add your bank account. And the way the way the app works is that it allows for direct ACH transfer between the two parties, between the two co-parents. So you would add your bank, and then you would go ahead and send the bill. The bill would come, and the bill would come with an invite to the app for the other parent. And at that point, that parent could choose to join DComply. And if they do, they'll go on DComply. They could look at the app, and then when they go to pay the bill, they'll be requested to move forward with signing up and adding their bank account to the app. If they choose not to and they just go ahead and pay the bill outside the app, that's fine. There's an option for the first parent who sent the bill to go ahead and mark that bill paid offline so that any payments that don't come on the app are still recorded. So that's really it. It's pretty simple. So you get on the app, you check it out, you kind of feel your way around it, and it's pretty self-explanatory. And then when you're ready, you invite your co-parent, and if you want to do payments through the app, you set up that piece of it, which is the what we call DComply Pay, and that will allow for the ACH transfer, and then you just transact through the app.
Just taking a couple of notes here. Not being app savvy as far as creating an app, and especially when you're dealing with financial institutions, I'm going to guess that it's the data between the banking is like super encrypted.
Yeah, totally. So we use a service called Dwala, and we use another service called Plaid. And Dwala is a company that does the ACH transfer between the parents, and they also do the verification of the parent identity. So when you sign up to add your bank, you're actually being piped directly into Dwala, and Dwala is taking. They're using another system called Plaid to verify your bank account, and then they use their system to verify your identification to make sure that you are the person you say you are. And then all of that information. I don't get DComply doesn't have anyone's bank accounts or bank account information. We don't collect any of that information. The only thing we're really collecting is a name, phone number, and email, and that's all that we have. And we have protection against that too. So, but that's the only information that's on our servers. All the banking information is really held with Dwala and with Plaid, and those guys have invested millions and millions of dollars to make sure that they're protecting that information. That's their core business, is security and fintech. So that's why we partnered up with them. There's no way we could build the kind of secure infrastructure that they could. It just wouldn't. We just simply don't have that kind of resources.
And I didn't look, but is there a cost for the app?
The app is going to come in a couple different flavors once we release the second version of it.
Okay.
The first flavor of it is free, which basically means that there's a trial version of the app. The first 7 transactions are free. The first 7 send bills. So that gives someone the opportunity to go off and use the app and make sure they really like it before they start paying for it. The app is also free for if there's a parent who's just using it to make payments, and that's the only thing that they're doing in the app will remain free for that parent. So the only time you kind of hit the meter is when you're actually sending a bill, not when you're paying a bill. So for those payers only, it's a completely free app. Then there's a kind of version of it that's just like an expense tracker version. That would be what we call DComply Basic, and that would mean you don't connect your bank account. You just use DComply as like a billing and tracking engine. And the subscription for that is $2.99 a month, and it's cancelable at any time. Then the kind of the the premium version of it is what we would call DComply Pay, and that's where you would use DComply with your co-parent to transact within the app and actually send a bill and make and receive payments. And that's $5.99 a month, and that also comes with all of the premium reporting that you can get in the app. And the $5.99 a month gets you an unlimited number of transactions. So you could really send as many bills as you want in a month. There's other tech that exists out there where they'll do some stuff similar to this, but they will charge you either a transaction fee or a pretty heavy fee every time you transact in the app. So we wanted to get away from that and provide a more, just a better, less expensive experience.
That again, I really, really wish I had something like this earlier, because I think a lot of the headaches, the very fiery, because I'm Irish, and it doesn't take much to get me going. And with several emails going back and forth between myself and my former spouse, uh, I would just literally lose my shit in the emails. And I really believe that if DComply was around and I have known about it, I think I would have had less anger, less worry, and a little bit of a calmness to myself.
Yeah. I think like in these times, especially like with what's going on in the world with this crazy virus, what's really nice about Decomply is that when I send a bill, even if she doesn't pay it, I know it's being tracked, and I know that it's inescapable. It's an inescapable conclusion that this is in this third party application where she can't say that she doesn't owe this money. So I even if she is in a position where she doesn't have the money to pay it now because she can't work and she needs more time, I could be okay with that because I know it's being tracked and we're not fighting over it. So I think like when things get hard is the time when people really need something like this, and because it does create kind of like I said that before, like the idea of like a commitment device where everybody's kind of operating off of the same platform and everybody sees the same things and there's no false narratives.
One of the things I found really intriguing about your website is, so you have your wife. I'm gonna screw it up, but I apologize now. Genoviva,
Giovanna.
Giovanna.
Yeah.
See, told you. I apologize to your wife, Giovanna. But you have, as we mentioned, Gabriel Hartley again, who's been a great podcast guest on our podcast. But you also have other advisors. What is their role with Decomply? Why do you have these advisors um, for the business?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Giovanna is my current wife.
Well,
We
hold on, stop.
Yeah.
Current and last.
I'm sorry.
Current wife and last wife.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm
technically we're
trying to
actually
save you here, Marco.
technically we're not married, so it's kind of a weird thing. So we're both divorced, and we both have been through the ringer with our exes. And when we came together, we decided we'd call ourselves married, and we'd have rings, and we'd do all the married things, like have a wedding, but we actually wouldn't get married with the state of New Jersey that we live in now. So we're married, but we're kind of not. So
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna play marriage psychiatrist.
yeah.
Uh, I don't play one on TV nor really on the radio or podcast. So why? Why did you two come up with this uh, way of quote unquote marrying?
we never want the state of New Jersey to get involved in our personal dealings. So it was just a fail safe to make sure that we never had to go through divorce again.
Interesting. Where did this idea come from?
It was one we came up with together and we agreed on.
Do you know other couples that have done that?
I'm sure there are. I've got friends who are just they've been dating the same girl and they live with each other and they're in the same house and they never got married. The only thing I think we did differently is we actually had a wedding. We just never went to the courthouse and actually got the wedding license,
The paperwork.
the paperwork, the marriage
Well,
license.
the so the state of New Jersey, they don't have the law that if you two are
They do. They do. After 7 years, it's common law marriage. But my understanding of it is it only matters if it matters to one of us to take the other to court. And that's, we have an arrangement where we never want to do that. We've talked to each other about it, and it's something we don't ever want to do.
wow. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I would have gone along with that idea with my marriage now, or that's something to think about. That really is, Marco. That um, you did the whole ceremony and all that, and that blows my mind. I'm sorry, but in a good way. It just blows my mind. I think that's it's like you said, you both came from bad former marriages and you don't want to go through that again, which I agree. I mean, that's how my wife and I are that um, I tell people before her and I got married, we went to marriage counseling because again, we didn't want to rehash the same marriages we just came out of,
Right.
that we want to just, lay the cards on the table and go, all right, let's just talk. And with you, I again, I'm just blown away. It's that little emoji with the
Yeah.
cloud coming out of my head
Yeah.
right
I
now.
see it. I see it in my head. Yeah. And now
Yeah.
I get it completely. Yeah. I've just we just removed the state from it. That was
Wow.
basically our intent, more so than anything else. So, and it's so far so good. It's working for us.
All
Yeah.
right. So back to back to the other question. Your advisors on your board.
Yeah. So Giovanna's technically the founder. I was the kind of the inspiration for it, but she's the tech brains. So she's the person who helped figure out if this was technically feasible and help kind of with the initial part of the design of the actual product itself. But because I'm the person who really experienced the problem, I'm typically the mouthpiece. We got Gabrielle and Susan involved really because what's really important, and we also have one other advisor, and really what's the reason why we did that is most importantly is for credibility. We wanted to have people that were very involved in the divorce community who understood and really can appreciate this problem talk about this. The the kind of divorce professional community typically does not listen to lay people, right? So a person like me or Giovanna trying to get folks to listen and get people to basically recommend the app, it's really hard. But when Susan and Gabrielle talk about it, and because they believe so much in the mission, um, it's incredibly helpful. And they've been just absolutely fantastic with regard to helping us get the word out and really helping us beat other professionals in the community. I've met so many people through the two of them. They've been absolutely tremendous. They've also given me a ton of product advice. So, because of their legal background and because of their experience with this issue, they've also been able to guide me with regards to kind of places where we want to tweak the product, make some adjustments, and make sure that it's really delivering on the kind of experience that that our clients, our customers need. So they've really been instrumental. They've been really helpful. And then Bill Ames is a judge outside of was a judge, was a family court judge out of New York, and he's been helping to get other attorneys and other judges to know about the app and learn about it. So that's another reason why we have him on board, is really to help other people really learn more about the app and have an open mind to it. And Bill's a big believer in it. He sent the letter out to 100 attorneys, basically sharing with them what his experience was when he was on the bench and how many times he saw situations escalate and really hurt families over really um, dumb bills like the soccer camps or the prom dresses, and the things that really kind of get people pretty fired up. So
Exactly.
yeah, so he's seen it happen over and over again. So he's a believer, and he's been helping get the word out. So it's really important to have the advisors on, both from the perspective, from a marketing perspective, and also from just helping us make sure that we have the right features and functions that are going to support our customers going forward.
So, what has the law profession said about your app? I mean, are they? I mean, have you had? I mean, I'm going to guess you've had both positive and negative.
Yeah, yeah, and it really depends on the attorney that you speak to, right? There are attorneys out there who say, "Hey, I get paid an hourly rate, and I'm here to negotiate an agreement, and then I'm out. Like, I want nothing to do with post divorce. I don't really care about that. I just want to, focus on getting the best deal that I can from my client, and then I'm moving on, and that's okay." So those are so typically that's the kind of feedback that I might get from an attorney who's of that mindset and not interested in the apps, and that's okay. That's just who they are. But there are other attorneys who are either what I find are either younger attorneys who are into tech, or there are attorneys who've been practicing for a long time who actually feel the pain of their clients post divorce. And it's those attorneys and mediators that seem to be the most interested in the app. And the feedback from them is unbelievably positive. They all say the same thing. They keep telling me that I'm going to make millions of dollars. I keep telling them I'm not. There's no chance. But yeah, they are really blown away by the app, and they really like the simplicity of it. And I think what they like the most about the app is the reporting. So they've seen the reporting, they see how clean and clear it is, and how easy it is to follow and see kind of where people either were making payments or not making payments, and for what reasons they were or weren't. And they just love that. They think that that's really going to change the way that people approach and attack this whole situation around petitions for modifications in the court system. So they're really supportive of it.
I don't, and this is where I just look at the legal profession and going, this is something that's going to benefit your client. So when you're telling me that there are attorneys out there who just don't want to be on board, I'm guessing it's because you know maybe they're on retainer and they're like, no, 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 I don't want to lose money, which I get. Everybody's trying to make a buck, but at the same time, it's really difficult to fathom an attorney not wanting to be on board because the, it goes back to, it doesn't matter your client, it goes back to the kids and
Right.
helping the kids. That's the big picture right there, is our
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And again, there are some attorneys that I've uh, heard stories about, and I really want to slap.
I know some attorneys like that too. I try to assume positive intent as much as I can because when I don't, I find myself getting very, very angry and frustrated, kind of like you described before. So, in the spirit of assuming positive intent, I think the way to explain it is I think there are attorneys out there who are kind of mediation and wellness minded, where they really want to just get to the best agreement with the least amount of emotional distress. And then I think there's other attorneys out there who are really passionate about the law and really passionate about litigating the best possible agreement they can based on the law. And that's just the frame of mind that they come from, right? So, um, do I think that that's the best approach? No, I don't think a bulldog litigator is the best thing for families or the best thing for approaching divorce, but it is, there's a market out there for it, and there's people who want to approach their divorces that way, and that's okay. I'd rather focus on the people who are out there who are really much more interested in wellness and making sure that people are having healthier divorces and trying to approach their and trying to create tools and processes that really promote a much more positive sense of divorce. And Gabrielle and Susan are two people who are of that ilk, and they're terrific.
Well, I do have to give a shout out to Gabrielle because I had told her I had a previous attorney on this podcast, and it was like pulling teeth to get responses from her. And I was really nervous when Gabrielle came on, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be painful. And she just has that great New York in your face, let's have some fun personality. And so I was like, cool. And a matter of fact, this morning she sent me an instant message saying, "Hey, I think I have an idea for your podcast. I want to come back on." I'm like, Gabrielle, you have an open invite, so
Oh yeah.
heck, anytime. Yeah, I
She's
mean,
got a giant personality. People absolutely love her. I mean, I have advisor calls with her, and I can't get a word in. She's just going, and she's going at 90 miles an hour. And we're like, Susan and I are just watching the Zoom, and we're laughing our heads off the whole time. She's got such a big personality, and she's just so incredibly well intended, and she wants to do a lot of good for the world and for this community. So she's fantastic.
well, as a podcast host, she is one of those people that you do love to have, but it's exactly like you said, you won't get a word in edgewise,
No, uh-uh.
but
It,
that's okay.
that's all right. It's the Gabrielle show. It's not the Tommy show anymore.
Exactly. That's okay. I'll take a
That's
step
good.
back and
Yeah, that's great. That'll up the ratings.
yeah, it's funny you say that. So Marco, last question of the day, and I'm going to let you go and drink more water. Marco, what has changed in your life the past 12 months?
Oh, a lot of things. God, the last 12 months have been crazy. Um, they've been really busy because I still have my day job. So, I'm doing this and doing Decomply, and then also I'm also a regional vice president over at NetSuite. So, I'm putting in my 40 to 50 hours a week at NetSuite, then trying to find another 10, 20 hours a week to work on this, and then have other people who help me on Decomply. So that's been quite busy. So that's changed. I think another thing that's changed for me is the longer that I've spent working with Decomply, the kind of more peace that I've had in my life, especially with my my own divorce, because I've had some really positive conversations with parents who have used the app and have told me how much it's helped them. So it feels good. It's a really good feeling to know that you actually built something that people can use, and that is really helping families in a really positive way. So what keeps me going is I try to keep thinking about the kids of those parents who might be fighting about money, and knowing that more and more of them may not have to have those fights or experience those arguments between their parents if we can keep getting the word out and get more people to use the app, and that feels good. So it's been busy, it's been crazy, but it's been a really good experience.
Marco, what besides getting more and more people to use the app, what can the listeners here also help you do to help with the app?
It's a great question. I mean, they could help themselves by getting on the app, and then I think the other thing that they can do is they could refer people to the app, onto the app. There's actually a give $10, get $20 referral program on the app. So you can actually give a friend of yours $10 for trying the app, and actually get yourself $20 if that person goes on to become a paid user of the app. So we have a cool promotion to do that. And I would think the other thing that you could just do is just be nice to each other, everybody. So just try to continue thinking of ways of being a better co-parent, and being a better, kinder co-parent. And I think that's all we could ask of people. And stay away from the courts, and do your best to work things out in the most peaceful way you can, so that these things don't impact our kids and in our society.
Thanks for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. Hopefully you puked working out, and not because of something Tommy said. Wait, please leave a rating and review. However you get this podcast, whether it's through the mail or from your neighbor or listening in under the couch. I don't know. You tell me.